Oh, the Roland didn't go. We're live. Go.
All right, we are live. Ladies, gentlemen, quadrupeds, ectotherms, welcome to another blood-cooling episode of the Pondcast. We're here, I'm Anthony, we're here with Kevin Minto.
Hey guys.
And America's turtle heartthrob, Chris Leone. And
Hi.
Steve is here as well. Steve, can the people see you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I can't see you. You're hidden behind my microphone settings. Awesome. We're here and off to a good start. Excited to bring this show to you because we wanted to do something a little bit different where we basically use this as an opportunity to talk about husbandry, right? That's one of the things that this group is really good at. So, we do a lot of talking about ideas and things like that. Let's actually spend some time talking about some of the things we work on. I am going to silence that beeping in the background. I don't know if you can hear that. Just one second. Talk amongst yourselves.
We can hear it.
So what's going on, guys? How are you?
So welcome to the podcast, everybody. What is this? This is episode 65?
65.
65. How many episodes have I been on now? Is this 8? I was trying to figure that out.
Either 8 or 9.
Well,
not as a,
are you talking?
Not as a guest. I mean, as a host.
Oh, I don't think it's been 8.
No, I thought it was.
No, I don't think I think we probably have had 8 episodes this year. You were on once, kind of when we had Casey on in January.
That's right. That's what I'm thinking of. Yep.
Yeah, and then you weren't on when we had Zach on, right?
Yes, I was.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first one when Zach was on and we talked about. At that point, okay. He was still going to Madagascar.
I think that was March, and then you weren't on in February when we did the monk episode. Yeah, anyway, we don't have to do this on the air. Yeah. We don't have to do this on the air though. So I think it's probably more like 6 or 7. But okay. Whatever. So this is something that comes up all the time, and we don't ignore the request for sure. It's something that we're always excited to talk about, and I think it's something that comes up naturally in our shows all the time. But instead of just having it come up, we thought, let's actually just dedicate a show to this. So our features will all be kind of geared towards that. And then we'll be able to talk about some specific husbandry related things that you guys should really like. So first, before we get started, just want to talk about the Pondcast t-shirt again. Keep Steve on his toes. So we have the bonfire still set up until Friday. We're really excited about that. This is, again, we've been doing the podcast for 7.5 years. We've never had a Pondcast themed anything in terms of like merchandise, merch, if you will. So there's hoodies, tank tops. If you're not a hairy beast like Kevin Minto and I, tank tops could work for you. There's children's sizes as well. Some pretty cool stuff. So head on over to the bonfire link, which you can find on our Facebook page, and check out the t-shirts. We'll talk about it again later in the show, but just wanted to throw that out there. So those are available until Friday. And speaking of t-shirts, Chris, I really like yours.
Oh, Mr. DNA?
Yeah, I mean, I like Kevin's t-shirt because I'm from Connecticut. Oh, here we go.
Well, you're wearing a pretty good one yourself.
I am. Let's talk about our t-shirts for a second. I like the bonfire link there, so that shows you what it looks like.
Yeah,
you see some of the merch there. T-shirt, tank top, long sleeve, and there's also a hoodie, and as I said, children's sizes. So pretty exciting stuff.
I bought a bunch myself.
Kevin's rock. Yeah, you got 3 of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got to do that. I was last minute with the Terrapin shirts too, but I'm not gonna be last minute with these. I'm gonna get on that. Well, that's almost last minute.
It's almost last minute.
Yeah.
That's okay. Not quite. I just ordered mine today so that I could say on the air that I ordered mine. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Okay.
Or 3 out of 4, because I'm sure Steve has ordered something, right, Steve? Okay. So, yeah, Kev, I like your shirt. Hartford Whalers is a Connecticut guy. I really appreciate that. But Chris, your shirt, man, I'm feeling that.
Bingo, Dino DNA.
Dinosaur eggs.
I have so many Jurassic Park shirts. It's not funny. Half of them don't fit me anymore. But
That's next level, though.
yeah. Oh, this is my brother-in-law found this shirt for me, and he was like, I can't remember. I think it was Christmas, and he didn't have the gift that day, and he was like, dude, I'm so mad your gift's not here, but I'm so excited. And he was like flipping out over it, and he was making such a big deal out of it. And then it came in the mail, and he just like he came over one day and he just threw it at me. He's like, here's your Christmas gift, and I was like, oh, it's a T-shirt. Oh my god, it's the best one ever. So
I like obscure things like that. Like that's next level right there.
Yeah.
Like not many people have that T-shirt, and people might, people who like the movie might not even realize what it is.
that's true.
Anyway, awesome. So let's jump right into it. So let me explain the idea for the premise of this show today. We wanted to highlight a specific project that each one of us is working on and talk about the ins and outs of those projects in a little more detail than we normally do. We kind of bounce around, and as things come up, we'll make analogies or compare this project to that project, that sort of thing. But we want to actually take a little bit of a deeper dive into a few of those projects. Now, some of us are known for particular projects. So Chris is known for several, but probably like Herman's tortoises, right? Kevin is known for Diamondbacks. I'm known probably for Spangleri. So when you ask one of us to talk about like those projects that we're most known for, or most involved in, or whatever, we could talk for hours and hours about those things. And we weren't really sure what other people would want to hear from each one of us. So the game plan for this was to have the other hosts here choose for us. So each project that we will highlight today of ours have been chosen by the other hosts. Okay, so that's pretty much what it is. And each one of us has one, and we're going to talk about them for you. And as things come up, feel free to send in questions of your own, and we're going to ask each other questions and just have a little rap session about some of our favorite projects that we might not have brought up on our own. Are we ready?
I think we're ready.
We're feeling it?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I'm excited for this because, like you said, like, I think almost anybody in the hobby, at least, is known for something, whether it's one species or a few, but you don't take into consideration other things that they might have. And this is a good way for, to expose that and maybe learn a little something from it.
Absolutely. So who's going first?
Kevin.
Oh, I volunteered last month, so I figured I'd get it out of the way. This month I want to be either middle or last. I'm sorry, guys.
All right, I'll go first.
I thought I was the one that was mean to Kevin.
I wasn't being mean. I wasn't being mean to him. I wasn't.
It's because I said Nutella is not as good as peanut butter.
We're still on that. We're still on that thing.
I don't know why you needed to bring that up. Now
I'm fueling this fire, man.
I don't feel good now. Damn.
I know my role. My role is to get picked on. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris.
All right, so
take it away.
You want me to go first?
Yeah. I don't remember what we chose for you, though.
Well, wait a minute. I thought
I chose it.
I thought I'm supposed to ask you about the project that I picked for you. No, is that not how this is going to go?
Oh, yeah, let's do that. So you want to talk about mine first?
Yeah, that's why I didn't realize that. Sorry. If you want to,
that's funny.
About what Kevin picked for me, then let's go that way.
Yeah, it's like a Yankee swap or Dirty Rotten Santa, like a gift giving thing where you get for the person. So if you say so and so is going first, like, okay, is it the gift that someone got for them, or is it the one that they got for someone else?
So what do you want me to do? You want me to ask?
We can do it.
To tell.
Oh man, that's. So let's tell. Why don't you tell first?
Okay, I'll tell.
Let's tell about yours first. Okay, but I don't remember what you were going to tell about.
So I chose the Leucocephalon iguana, Chris.
Ooh, nice pronunciation.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Is that all right?
Yeah, it's perfect. Leucocephalon, and leucocephalon means white head. And yes, I am currently. I have not been for long, but I am working with an adult group of 2.2 animals. And this, just so anybody knows, this is the Sulawesi forest turtle. It's only found on the island of Sulawesi.
So good.
And it's just to give a little bit of background. and I guess this is no surprise to some people, probably especially you guys, but I've always been attracted to Leucocephalon euanoi because I feel like they are Indonesia's version of the North American wood turtle. And I think a lot of people have said that, like they see a lot of similarities just in the way the turtles are built, the massive heads of the males, and just the overall structure and morphology can be tied back to the Glyptomus and Sculpta, at least somewhat. So they always intrigued me, and I kind of was always afraid of them because, the few people that worked with them, aside from the TSA and a couple other overseas entities, would just complain about them never making it. One of two things would either happen: either you'd only be able to find males, and they can't be housed together, or they would just not do well and die. And that scared me, but then later on it started to intrigue me a little bit because I've become so available to my wood turtles in terms of providing them with my understanding of their habitat, and I see a lot of similarities in the habitat too, whereas these turtles occur in these slow-moving, clear water, mountainous type streams in Sulawesi, which is similar to the habitats that we see North American wood turtles here in the Northeast and Great Lakes region. So I just kind of started thinking, if this ever were to happen, I think I might be able to pull this off. And sure, challenges presented themselves later on, but terribly long story short, I ended up with 2.2. It's all several partnerships. 1.1 of the adults is between me and a friend, Jared Sikowski, who used to be a member of the Turtle Room. And then one adult male belongs to Mike Lorette. If you guys know Mike Lorette, he's a very impressive biologist, herpetologist, reptile keeper. And the other female recently came to me from the TSA on loan. So that is what the group is. And I think I've given a little bit of a background on how I have them and why I have them. So do we want to ask questions now?
We do.
I have a question for you.
Of course you do.
So, yeah, why not?
You're the question guy.
I'm the question guy, I guess. All right. So, they are not extremely strong swimmers, correct?
No.
Okay, so is that why?
I mean, yes, correct. Sorry, they are not good swimmers.
Not strong swimmers. Yeah.
Correct.
So is that?
That
is that what you feel?
correct.
Yeah, I knew you were going to do it. Sorry, Kev. Got it.
Sorry, no problem.
Get in there. Who would have?
Don't do it. Not on air.
Okay.
Oh man. All right. So is that why you feel like they're endemic to Sulawesi and not any of the other 17,000 plus islands in Indonesia?
Yeah. Maybe. That's a really, really good question. I'm embarrassed because I wasn't prepared for it. So we're going to talk about that later. But
we'll circle back.
Yeah,
we'll circle back to that.
Oh, we got a problem here. We're gonna have to cut out. But
let's put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a second part question to that then. Second part to that question. Being that there is so many islands there, they were more than likely at some point closer land masses that were connected.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, being that they're so close, they all have the same climate, as far as I understand. Why wouldn't they have survived in other islands if they were, once a...
Well, I mean, I think a big thing to do with this species is just its terrible reproduction rate,
Mm-hmm.
reproductive rate. You're talking, I mean, I have very limited experience with them, but from everything that I've read, everything that I've been told by people that know way, way more about them than I do, you're talking one egg, maybe two. And the turtles have definitely been poached heavily for the pet trade in the past. I remember a time where it just seemed like they were males all over the place. You know what I mean? They were just, everybody had them on price lists and stuff like that. And so I definitely think it's maybe it's accessibility on some of the other islands as to why the turtles disappeared there. I don't know enough about the habitat specifics of each island. Maybe, this particular island in Indonesia just has that microclimate for them or habitat preferences that enabled them to root there and continue on, whereas it didn't work on other islands. I don't know. There's a lot about their natural history and past that I'm still eager to learn, but those are definitely good questions.
Okay.
I wish I could answer them for you. I'll ask the turtles, for you and get back to you. Wise ass.
One other question then. Sorry to keep jumping in. I just want to ask them while I remember them. Anyway, are they overly aggressive like males versus males?
Yeah. So they're just aggressive turtles, man. This is if you guys can see, this is one of the females basking. This was shortly before I discovered that she laid an egg, actually. But they are very aggressive. I've been warned not to keep them together, specifically males. This is the main breeding pair right here. And it's funny, man. If you pick one up, they snap at you like a diamondback terrapin or a common snapping turtle. You know, and
Really?
you don't want to get bit. You know, you could just tell that they can do some serious damage. The males are huge. You know, Mike Lorette's male is really big. He's just a big. That's the fertile egg that I had gotten, and they're so I don't keep the males together, but I am having success housing the original pair together. They seem to live together beautifully in harmony, and they breed readily, and so there's no aggressive issues there. But I wouldn't dare put the two males together. I can't imagine what would happen. You know? Okay,
so that might have answered some of our questions then, because the vast majority of those islands in Indonesia are a lot smaller than Sulawesi. It's like one of the 4 bigger islands in Indonesia. So if they're in a much smaller area, they may have just, outcompete, fought, killed each other off.
Yeah, who knows? And if they're anything like North American wood turtles, then perhaps they are cannibalistic with their young.
Okay.
And even though the young are very large at hatching, it wouldn't take much for an adult male to pick one off quickly, or several.
What's a hatchling usually weigh? Roughly.
This egg here resulted in a failure, and the animal went full term in the egg and died within the egg just days before hatching. And it was big. I did not weigh it. I discarded it because it was kind of heartbreaking to deal with. That I had gotten that far with something that usually doesn't work out for anybody. And so the hatchling perished in the egg, but I mean, I will tell you right now, it's a good 3 times the size of a North American wood turtle hatchling.
Okay.
I mean, the egg was massive, I wish I weighed it. I did not.
Okay. Well, in the future.
I mean, it was every part of 3 inches long, maybe 2.5 inches, so.
That's crazy cool. With that incubation media, it looks like peat moss and vermiculite mixed.
Straight vermiculite.
Okay, it's just a darker vermiculite.
It's that I like to use the black gold stuff. That's why it almost looks more like a dark sand.
That's the vermiculite I use too.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. I really prefer it. And I don't know what I did. I think maybe I let it get a little bit too wet towards the end.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Were you measuring? I've been finding lately, like with the Spangler eye eggs, they're looking good on 1-to-1 vermiculite to water by weight, which I never would have done in the past.
Yeah.
But the last couple of years, I just haven't had success. Large success. I've been hatching them, but not as much as I should be. Getting fertile eggs, and they're going.
Yeah.
Half term, close to full term, and just aren't hatching.
If you recall, that's similar to what I was dealing with the angulate or bowsprit tortoise eggs when I was working with them. A lot of midterm, full term failures. Couldn't figure it out. That's a story for another day. But I wish I had more to compare this to. But this was the one and only egg I got, and it was wonderfully fertile. It went all the way and just perished at the end. And now Chris Hagen, who was my mentor during this whole process, he basically said, give yourself a pat on the back, even though it died in the egg, because I got that far with it. And he said it's just he said he doesn't know why, but it is a very common occurrence for them to develop like that and just die at the end. I assume it has something to do with the oxygen requirements of the now fully developed baby in the egg. And, maybe there's something that needs to be done towards the end. I mean, again, I hate to bring it up, but comparing it to the angulate tortoise thing where I had to actually sand the egg down to allow more oxygen in there. Now, I don't think I could have done that with this really brittle shelled egg. I guarantee it would have collapsed, but maybe there was something where towards the end, the egg needed to dry out a little more. Maybe I needed to let more air in the incubator. I'm hoping I get another shot at it again this winter if she comes around and lays again the same time. But I'm scared to death of it too. That the same thing's going to happen.
Is there no data like from Sulawesi on their natural like reproduction and like
Not
gestation?
that I've been able to find. Yeah,
Okay.
they're really poorly understood.
So I know some of the keepers of South American turtles have talked about is how important the layer of sphagnum moss covering the egg is, because its pH helps break down the egg naturally a little bit, like the soil they'd be buried in South America. So that makes me, that's always one of those things I think about when people talk about eggs that seemingly need to have something happen to them to help the animal hatch. It's like, so maybe, what in nature is happening in the soil or whatever that might cause the egg shell to break down a little bit to let that oxygen in, or make it easier for the egg to get, for the turtle to break out, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, because that has been brought up with a lot of different things. Where people that are having failures with any species similar to this, that one of the topics that is brought up is what is the pH of the soil that the eggs are typically being laid in compared to what the medium you're incubating it on. So that's something else too. Like, I did not put sphagnum moss on or around this egg, and maybe I should have. Maybe next time around I'll do that.
I'm not. This isn't one of those projects where you could just ask somebody who's done it before.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because there aren't many. Have you spoken to anyone who's done it before successfully?
Just Chris Hagen. That's it.
Chris has. I didn't know that Chris had.
Yeah, they've had. Well, the female that I have from them, they hatched, is one of the ones that
got it.
Oh wow.
they
Okay.
produced. Yeah, at the Turtle Survival Center. So they have hatched several. But he said, for the several that they've hatched, there's plenty of failures, and he said something as simple as, and go figure, we hear stories like this all the time, they'll come out one day and there's a baby in the enclosure from an egg that they didn't know was there.
Right.
Right. So it's something as simple as that. And then maybe sometimes you do need to just, I've hatched a species here that, I guess they're not too far-fetched, like the Mediterranean tortoises that have hatched outdoors naturally here, which we've talked about my climate being very suitable for them. So I guess that's not really a surprise, you know what I mean? But it just goes to show sometimes you don't even know. It's almost like what you don't know won't hurt you. And sometimes a very positive thing comes out of it. And you walk out one day to your building and there's a baby Iwanoi looking at you that you didn't even know the egg was there, But now, I'm not, if I get another egg, I'm not going to leave it in there, in fear that the female will eat it, But
now,
I'd be interested to know what the incubation medium was for the folks at the Denver Zoo that hatched them, and then also Chris Hagen when he hatched them as well.
Chris said it was vermiculite, but I want to recall now they may have been using some sphagnum. I gotta go back in our emails. Now he and I are talking about a totally different thing, but I wasn't very far off from because again he was mentoring me with this. I wasn't very far off from what they were doing, but it just didn't pan out, Still,
how's Kevin doing?
It was I don't know. I think
trying to fix my tablet. Excuse me.
Doing calisthenics. Somersault break.
Were you going to say something else before you crudely, messed with your computer?
Fixing stuff, man. No, I was, but you beat me to the punch. I was going to ask, in an ideal situation, would you like to leave it in the substrate to see if it would hatch naturally based on like pH,
I mean, ideally with anything, I would love to just leave everything alone and see what comes of it. But
now why don't you try blocking off that area of the enclosure? Like when she lays, like just take him out of there.
Well, you know what? I guess it's definitely an option. You know what I mean? I mean, it'll take space away from her. These guys, I haven't had the gall to try them outdoors here. I have found that they really are sensitive to cold, which surprises me because I've got species here that come from all different areas that I leave out till November and they don't even care. Yeah. But these guys seem to, if the temperature drops overnight, that they're not having it. So I have chosen them to be really one of my only projects to stay permanently indoors, which I don't really like, but they're doing so well like this. So it'd be kind of hard to take room away from them. But again, anything is an option. I think I can nail it if I'm given the chance again. And I think with the oxygen requirements of the egg and maybe pulling a little bit back on the moisture towards the end of the term there, because it's frustrating because the hatchling I had just candled it without even handling the egg. I had just candled it and it was pitch black in there, just a week or so shy of hatching, and you could see it thrashed, it moved. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then the full term dates come, and then we're a week past it, and we're 2 weeks past it, and it's not hatching. And then it started to turn colors, and I was like, ugh, it's gone, And I opened it up, and it had died, and it was a fully formed, perfect baby, So we'll see. I am happy that I got that far with it. Something was going right. It just didn't. It wasn't a home. Right. It was a swing and a miss, or it was a single, or maybe even a double. But it was not a home run.
Was that her first time laying? Like
she actually came from Ben Forrest, who's another TTR member, and she had, when Ben sent her to me, he sent her out, and then the very next day he said, "You're not going to believe this, but I was cleaning out her enclosure and I found an egg." And he said he had no idea how long it had been in there, if it was any good, and it turned out to not be good. But to answer your question now, it's prompted me to remember that maybe leaving it in the enclosure didn't work because that egg was bad. It had gone bad.
Okay, it wasn't infertile. It was a.
He thinks it was fertile and that it went bad, but he has no idea how long it had been in there.
Sure.
And then then she laid again for me, and that's how that turned out.
And is she gravid currently or no?
I don't feel anything in there. I was able to palpate her. And feel the egg, and this time I don't feel anything yet. I think it's going to be again. It'll, we'll come around, right around the holidays. She'll do it again.
Okay.
I mean, I post a lot of videos and stuff, and even the video that you put together, the footage I gave you of them, that pair is constantly breeding. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So good things ahead, and keep us updated, and that's really cool. One last question to kind of round out this topic. People talk about Yuanawai, the Sulawesi forest turtle that we're talking about right now, as being like an Asian wood turtle, and you mentioned that.
Right.
I saw another post on Facebook today describing Maremys japonica, the Japanese pond turtle, as the Asian North American wood turtle.
Right.
I've seen people talk about Spinosa like that. I've seen people talk about Cyclemes like that.
Right.
So my question to you, a wood turtle expert who has kept all of those other taxa, which Asian turtle is most like the North American wood turtle? And you have to take into account cold hardiness. So the Yuanawai could look like them, but they're not cold hardy though.
This is great. This is my favorite question so far. No offense, Kev. You had great ones, but I really like this. I love you.
Sorry,
I love you.
I love Kev too.
So I'm still gonna pick Yuanawai, and the reason is because of the intelligence, the intelligence, the morphology, and the habitat specifics, the preferences that they have for their habitat. So just the intelligence level, you know what I mean? Again, you guys know how many species of turtles and tortoises I've kept over the year, and I still, even comparing them to Minoria, I am still yet to see a Colonian challenge the intelligence of a North American wood turtle. That's not to say it's not out there, but I have all these species we're talking about for the most part I have kept, and I just have not seen it. It's incredible. So I'm still going to go with Yuanawai, but they lose in the category of cold hardiness. Okay, a wood turtle. I mean, even in South Jersey here, I don't really think our winters are all that cold enough for the North American wood turtle. They do reproduce for me. It's been a little bit of a battle over the years once I moved further south, but they really, really, really thrive in cold. Like right now, like here's a prime example. Right now, if I knew we were going to talk about this, I would have gotten some footage to Steve. But right now, there are 2 North American wood turtles nesting out in the enclosure. I was just watching them on the camera to make sure the crows don't get their eggs. and it is very cold for June. It is very cold for June. We're going to be only 59 degrees tonight, which we shouldn't even be seeing that. That was supposed to be out of here well over a month ago. And they're the one species, them and the Blandings turtles, that are like, yeah, so what? This is great, you know? So, but there are other similarities. Now, you know, Moremi's japonica, I'm going to give that they lose. No way. I don't think there is a similarity at all, with the exception that, and I think you can attest to this, there were some dealers, we will not name them, that used to sneak baby North American wood turtles onto their tables at the Hamburg Reptile Show, where North American wood turtles are highly protected and you cannot sell them under any circumstances. They would put baby North American wood turtles on their table and sell them as Japanese wood turtles, Moremi's japonica, because they are that similar as babies.
Yeah, especially
as
as
adults,
babies.
there are some similarities, but you flip the two over and it's night and day. You know, and if you know these species, you know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
Intelligence, you know, in my opinion, Moremi's japonica is a pond turtle. You know, a North American wood turtle is everything pretty much all in one. But I will say that I think cyclames have a lot of similarities. They have the appetite and the hardiness. They definitely can take some cold, but they just seem to kind of want to sit around and get fat instead of really exhibit their intelligence as much as a wood turtle does. So definitely some similarities, but to sum it up, I think Yuwanoai takes the cake in that, with the exception of cold hardiness.
And I think, just because I like to do this on the show, and I know, Chris, you do it as well, when we talk about a scientific name, we like to also talk about what the common name is. So when we're talking about cyclames, that's a genus,
Right.
where the species are known as Asian leaf turtles, in case you didn't know. Now you know. Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Who's next? Who's
Not
next?
me.
I'll go.
Who's next? Who's next? Who's next?
I go whenever you guys
All
tell me
right.
to go.
Kev, what are you talking about? I can't remember.
I don't know. What am I talking about? It's
I don't know.
obvious
Did I
what
get?
I'm talking about. Yeah, you picked me. You picked Diamondbacks.
I did.
course.
You know,
You took
because
the easy
that's
route, man.
I did, but you know, Kev, I've
I'm not
been
as varied
pushing
with what I
you.
keep as you guys.
I've been pushing you to get out of your comfort zone lately. And your knowledge is strongest in Diamondback terrapins, and we shouldn't keep taking that from you.
It's fine.
Right?
Sure.
Because we love you and we want to build you up.
My knowledge is actually strongest in flavored seltzer water. Just so you guys are aware. Yeah.
Right. I'm with you on that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would agree.
So wait a minute. So you did pick Diamondbacks for him?
Yeah,
I did. Yeah.
And you're disappointed in that?
Me? No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
I like talking about him. In the beginning of the show, he was saying that we would talk about different species than what we were known for.
I did say that and then lied. Yeah. But I just, we also have to look at the body of work too, like over the last several shows, and we've been doing our new segments that include us talking about different projects and things like that. And I don't think, Kevin, have you talked about Diamondbacks in those yet?
The only time we talked about it when we had Jack Berlin on about 2 years ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, man.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you know what?
So there you go.
This is good. I think this is good because usually when we're talking about Diamondback terrapins, we're talking about Casey and the project. You know what I mean?
Right.
The Terrapin Conservation Initiative, and that's not.
I think that's the best project out there.
But thank you. But it's it's good to let people know that we have experience with them under captive conditions because that's extremely important, as you all know.
Right. So, Kev, tell us about your Diamondbacks. How many do you have right now? Are you at liberty to say?
It's not illegal to keep them in Connecticut. We cannot keep the northern subspecies, because they're native here. So it's what's called a species of special concern in Connecticut through our DEP. So we can't keep those, but I can keep any of the other subspecies as long as I'm kind of keeping track of where it came from. I can provide information, and then credible sources that say it is what it is. But I'm keeping Mississippi's, which is Pileata, the Texans, which is Littoralis, and I'm keeping Ornate, which is Macrospilota, excuse me. And if I mispronounce those, I'm sorry. My Latin is not the best.
They sounded good to me, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it actually started with Northerns before I knew any better.
Steve didn't correct you, so I think you did pretty good.
That's right.
Awesome. Steve, feel free to jump in at any point.
You're
Later,
doing it wrong, bro.
Mhm.
Me, a good buddy of mine who Anthony Charles Lee, and a coworker of mine years ago, probably about 4 years ago, we decided to each get Diamondback Terrapin. We saw them online. We wanted to try them out as a species. We ordered 3 Northerns off King Snake from Dave in PA, who, as we know, is a well-known
man.
poacher. But when I first got into it, I had no idea who he was. I didn't know any better
He
whatsoever.
sent them to you in a cereal box.
Dude, even worse. It was like a padded envelope. It was wrapped up. It was wrapped up in like
God.
He-Man sheets with duct tape. You know what I mean?
They should have let him go just a little bit longer to see if he actually went as low as starting to just put the label on the turtle and put it in the mail like that.
That guy, man. But no, he was sentenced to 6 months in jail, and I think it's like $250,000 in restitution. So,
and we know where he was taking him.
The guy definitely, made way more than that doing what he was doing, poaching for 11 plus years that I know of. But it's glad to see that he's going to be responsible for paying that back.
Mm-hmm.
So that was at first. And Steve, if you want to pull up my first picture, you can actually see that turtle. I had it from a hatchling till it was a subadult. It's picture number 1. That's him right there. I moved him out, and then I want to say a few months back, the person that once I figured I couldn't keep him, the person that took him from me was like, I have to get rid of him. So I helped, refacilitate. This is actually him within the past month or so. But Northerns are my favorite, man. They have the longest range. Chris will attest to this. They're extremely flighty in the wild, but in captivity, after you know them for a week, they're puppy dogs. They'll come right up to you. They won't be scared at all. It's one of the coolest turtles as far as that goes. And they have the widest range of phenotypes. Like you could just see different markings on. You'll never see any that are similar.
Yeah, it's like a McDonald's ball pit with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool.
Right, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, man.
It's gross.
Yeah, it can get close.
I don't know if he's comparing it that way, but
yeah. Well, that's where it's
so from there, I really like the species, but I wanted to work, with other subspecies there. So I went with the Mississippi, which is Malaclemes terrapin pileata. Steve, that's picture number 2. So
wait for the picture.
Yeah. So I got
fancy.
I got a decent group of animals together. It was 3.3. 3.3. I did have a female die right off the bat. I bought them from another guy. This is all early on. I didn't know it was a wild caught animal, and I really struggled to get it to eat. Brought him to the vet. We did 2 feeding. The stress, was too much for it. So that was unfortunate. But Mississippi's right now. Chris, do you have any at all there or no?
No, the only 2 I have is we have just whatever confiscations we have, and it's just a couple 2 Centrata and 3 Ornata. I'm sorry, 2 Centrata, 1 Terrapin, and 3 Macrospilota. I don't know why I said Ornata. I'm not talking about box.
It's the Ornate Diamondback.
Mm-hmm.
You just mixed it up a little bit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, Mississippi's, from just my experience personally, is they're so ridiculously casual. Like I can put my hand in the water, and these wild caught animals will come and swim on top of my hand because they know I'm bringing them food.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, and they haven't even been in captivity for extreme amounts of time. I think less than 10 years. But to be so comfortable with that, it's really, really cool. From there, I started getting some Ornates, which is the one that everybody wants. It's like the pretty one, But it's crazy. I think that Ornates might be my least favorite terrapin now. In the beginning, that's what I wanted. I wanted like a spotless pink head one, And I still have them. I still really like them. But of them all, I don't think they should be valued at what they're valued at.
I'm with you on that, actually.
Yeah.
So why are they least endearing to you compared to the other subspecies you keep?
It might be because everybody wants it because it's such like a beautiful, pretty animal.
Yeah, I get that.
You have these insane colors, it's pinks and purples and blues and this spotless skin, or even with spot skin. I have if Steve, you pull up picture number 3.
Yeah, give me a second.
You'll see this yearling that I have, where he's 2 years old now. That is really large spots right there. Yeah. So people generally don't like this. They want the spotless ones. But I think this is one of the coolest phenotypes there is on ornates. It's these big, big, bold spots that you would see in like Texans and Mississippis. They call like super Texans and whatnot. You don't see it a lot in ornates. I do think that's really, really great. But in general, I think they're, overhyped up now. They do the flower back, which is gorgeous. But
I was just going to say that. And I think that unfortunately that happens a lot. And it's like what people do. You know what I mean? It's even like, Anthony and I always tease him. He always teases me, and even other people I know with like some of the Asian turtles. Like, I really do love them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just making fun because of just how people just jaw hits the ground, and the reddest Beretti or the reddest japonica or this, that. And it's like, first of all, they're all beautiful. You know what I mean? This isn't ball pythons. We don't want it to be ball pythons, And I'm with you on that. I think Macrospilota, the ornate diamondback terrapin, is a gorgeous animal. But I think sometimes the way people behave about it, it makes you like, not now, not anymore,
For instance, so you can get a northern diamondback terrapin, a hatchling, for like $50, $60. You'd be hard pressed to find like an ornate like this for less than $500 as a hatchling. And why?
There are big differences. There are really big differences, but I would argue that diamondback terrapins are the ball pythons of the turtle world, because with those phenotypes and how they're all beautiful, but they all can differ. And if you breed them, you're going to get cool stuff. Whereas if you're breeding for albinism, that's a recessive gene, and that's going to be less. It's going to be a little more difficult to produce unless you're going like, you're starting off with the two albinos from the beginning. They're less likely to produce something cool and different than something that's like co-dom, like a ball python morph. So I think that when people are first getting started, they see things like morphs, like albino red ear sliders, which are really cool. But when you're in this for a long time, you start to just roll your eyes a little bit. I think diamondbacks are the same thing. There's a lot of people that don't know a lot about all of the different species of turtles that are really into diamondbacks. Not to say that's you, Kev, not to say that's anyone else, but I just think they're treated a little more like, if you look across the landscape of turtle related projects that you could be taking on, I do think that diamondback terrapins and the few turtle morphs that we have are most like that part of the snake community. But that's just my own opinion. So feel free to let me know when I'm stupid in the comments.
It makes sense. I think what's going on with red-eared sliders, and I've lost count of what they're doing with them now, with the lime Rios and Snoopshy Snoopos and whatever. But, some of these phenotypes, which they're natural, you know what I mean? They're incredible looking, and it's funny because Casey and I actually get excited over the classic ones, you know what I mean? The ones that like when I was a kid and my grandmother would go to the fish market to buy dinner that night, and she would rescue a diamondback terrapin from the food market, bring it home so that I could take care of it instead of it going to a soup pot, and it just had the light gray skin with the peppered markings all over it and the slate gray or black shell. And like, that's what I remember. So when we come across ones like that, when we're working in the field, we're like, oh, it's just more exciting to us than this like incredible looking concentric, as we've dubbed them. You know what I mean? Which again, there's no argument that they're all beautiful,
Agreed. So Kev, when you're keeping them, what's your process look like? What type of tubs are you using?
Yeah.
Substrate for egg laying, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Lighting.
So Steve, can you pull up number 5?
You got it.
Look at that. Right in order, huh?
Yeah, you did really good here. Wow.
I skipped number 4, actually. But that's fine. That's number 4.
Number 4.
That's 4B. That's a Texan, by the way.
Nice to meet you, number 2.
Yeah, so this is the way I keep them. It's very, very simple. It's just a 150-gallon Rubbermaid tub. Sand on the bottom with oyster shells so they can chew on it if they're trying to maintain their mandibles. I use a PVC bar across an egg crate to go up as a ramp. That way the the egg laying section is much higher than the water level because terrapins and most turtles don't like to lay if the land is below the water level. So that's the way I do that there. There on the other side of that is another 150-gallon tub, and I had this. You can't really see it very well, but it's this HDX 55-gallon black tub in between them, and that's cut. Each side has an area that opens and a board going down the middle to separate the two areas. That allows me to just have one nesting box for both species, but they're divided. Allows me to keep one light going over instead of two different lights to maintain, and just less space in my room. I have a very small room, so I need to maximize as much space as I can, and that's just the way I've always done it. Like one plant each to give them a little sense of security. I probably should ramp it up a little bit, but that's
Pun
the way
intended.
I keep them. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Pun intended. Yeah.
Kev,
ramp,
are you doing brackish water or fresh?
I do brackish water. Yeah.
You do brackish.
So actually, I
Gangster.
actually changed. I'm sorry.
Gangster.
I called you a gangster. Yeah.
Throughout the year, I change the salinity actually. When it's summertime and I can readily bring them out to feed in like fresh water, I keep more brackish. I don't like to feed as much in the tubs. It just helps maintain everything a lot longer. I work a lot and I don't have a ton of time with two small kids, so the less maintenance I can do, the better. And then in wintertime, I do slightly less salinity so that I can feed if they are awake, during certain times. If you look at the bottom right of the picture, you'll see this little black mass, whatever that is. That's actually a pool noodle that I have to put up on the sides of these things.
Oh yeah.
Terrapins are amazing climbers, as a lot of turtles are. Nobody ever that doesn't keep turtles thinks that turtles can climb stuff. It makes no sense. But this terrapin that you actually see in there, the one that's kind of spread out across horizontally, that thing is an escape artist. I cannot tell you the amount of times he's climbed out of the tub and I've had to search around that room to find him. And it's an unfinished room, so I've literally dug into my walls trying to find that turtle. Even 2 days ago, he was just in the middle of the room. I don't know how he gets out. I truly cannot figure it out to this day. I need to set up cameras on it further to figure it out so I can stop it. But yeah, that's the way I keep them. And as far as incubation goes, I use Hatchling. It's readily available.
Basically
You don't have to worry
perlite.
about any of the pre-mixturing of, if you're doing vermiculite or perlite with water.
Well, the
vermiculite,
hatchite
excuse me.
basically is perlite.
And yeah.
Do
that's
you
the way I keep 'em, yeah.
since you're doing brackish, I'm guessing you're not really having any problems with skin or shell issues, fungus or rot, or do you still see some of that?
I have years ago. I have Anthony put me onto something that's hydro. I forgot what it's
Chlorhexidine?
called. Chlorhexidine, yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, chlorhexidine.
Mhm.
I didn't pull pictures of
Nolvasan.
this. I'm sorry.
Nolvasan is the brand name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I found that works amazing. I got in an animal from a gentleman out in California. He assured me it was captive bred, everything like that. It'd be fine in fresh water. After about a week in fresh water, the entire terrapin from neck down was just fungus.
Wow.
Like really thick, crusty fungus. And then Anthony told me about chlorhexidine. I tried it out. And then within less than a week, animal was clear of the fungus.
Wow.
And then I brought the salinity up in the enclosure that I was in, and haven't had issues with it since.
That's great.
That is great.
Yeah, you'll
So
find
what's the
that.
key?
Sorry.
All three of us spoke at once. Go ahead, Kev.
You were saying what's the key?
I was just going to say, so what's in closing, what is the main key that you would tell to aspiring Diamondback terrapin keepers?
Mm-hmm. They are excellent swimmers. Even as hatchlings can be in deep water, but give them plenty of places to rest from time to time. Fake bamboo plants, and they work really well. Keep the water very clean. Brackish water is not necessary for captive bred animals, not at all. But make sure that your water stays clean. Clean your filter out fairly regularly. Make sure the water isn't. If you can feed them outside of it, great. Those are the main things that I would say if you want to have healthy animals. When they're younger,
Go ahead.
I would say when they're younger, it's very easy to overfeed them they'll grow to 4 inches in less than a year, which is pretty wild, you know. But you might start seeing some shell deformities from that pyramiding, you know. So I personally like to let them grow out. I have some that are 2 years old that are not even 4 inches yet.
Yeah,
you know,
grow them slow. Any species,
Yeah.
right? So you're gonna get fatty liver.
Yeah.
So you mentioned real quick. I know we got to move on from this, but I just wanted to get this out there because I think a lot of people are curious about this when it comes to Diamondback terrapins in captivity. Is brackish water not necessary for captive born and bred animals that are born into fresh water?
No, absolutely not. You don't need brackish water. Brackish water definitely helps if there's like a skin fungus issue, things like that, to kind of help ease it off. But it doesn't have to be a permanent thing. You know, it is where you find them in nature. They're in estuaries, but you got to keep in mind the salinity changes over time. You know, when the river's coming in, that salinity drops. You know, when it goes out, comes back up. And then they found terrapins up rivers in fresh water completely eating, you know. And
Well, they will consume. They'll consume more and when they're in fresh water, they'll eat more. When the salinity is higher, they consume less. Thank you to my wife for teaching me that.
I don't know the name of the gland, but you might know this. They have a gland in their eyes that allows them to secrete salt.
Right.
So they can actually ingest salt water and drink it, and then excrete the excess salt out of their eyes. I don't remember the name of the gland though.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty
Awesome,
neat.
Thank you, Kip.
You got it.
Who's next, Steve? Me or you, buddy?
Doesn't matter to me.
All right, I can go. We can leave you for last.
I mean,
'cause you're like a special
I could talk
add-on.
a while too.
Keep the best for last. Well, yeah, because you're going to be like a wealth of knowledge on what we're going to talk about. So
I know. I'll go quick. I promise I won't bore everybody.
no, this is a good one. This is a good one. And people are not going to expect this one. I don't think. Not for you.
No?
I don't think so.
All right. I like it. Well, Chris chose it. So I'll be talking about the striped mud turtle, and particularly the Everglades striped mud turtle, which is not a different species. There was research in like the 50s that called it a subspecies, but then that was later. Yeah, I don't know if it was actually debunked though. It was allegedly debunked. I do feel like they're different, but
Was it tentatively rejected, possibly?
it was a long time ago, and
Okay.
there was some DNA based research that had proven that there wasn't enough variation across the range of striped mud turtles, but I didn't see anything that had like an Everglades locale that was involved in that. So it's just like they were just like forgotten and then not included. That was my take anyway. But I just want to be full disclaimer: I am not a striped mud turtle expert. I'm just an enthusiast, if that makes sense. So in 2012, January 2012, my father passed away. He was like my best friend. And it was a really rough time for me. And of course, I did what any self-respecting adult does. And I bought turtles to fill the void in my life.
And you joined the turtle room.
That's right. And I joined the turtle room. Sure. I'd like to think that I was there all along, though, Steve.
Yeah.
So the project, because I remember just having like no money at that time. And the project that I decided to acquire, like I had to pinch pennies and scrounge together the money to get a group of striped mud turtles. And I got them from Paul Vanderschow, who is a wonderful resource and wealth of knowledge, who's helped everyone here at one point or another. Really great guy. And yeah, they were the first species that I had bred in several years at that point, which was awesome. And I really enjoyed them. And then I ended up letting them go at one point, just striped mud turtles in general at one point, because I had a bunch of other stuff going on and I was breeding them readily. And even though they're really small and don't take up much space, I felt like I could use the space for other things and the resources and time and energy and everything else. Well, I have them again, but I have a specific locale of striped mud turtles, which is the Everglades locale, which is smaller. The adult size is smaller. They're very small turtles. So we're talking about big adult females that are topping out around 3 inches, maybe a hair over 3 inches. And they're usually lighter in color. So we could just go through the pictures. That's the habitat. It's a small waterland tub for a breeding group, which is awesome. And they do really well. Sometimes with striped mud turtles, you'll see the females on land a little bit. Sometimes I only have one male. Sometimes I'll like to give the male a timeout and then move the females back. You'll see a lot of times the females will like bleed on their posterior marginal scutes around the rim of the carapace because they're getting bit by the male. That doesn't happen with my group, but it happened in past years with groups that I kept. This is a hatchling. You could just start to see the coloration is changing a little bit as it grows. So it gets a little grayer, a little lighter. Those are the adult females. So that's 3 old adult females in my hand. They're very small turtles. I think the next picture is a female. Nope, I lied. We can just go through the eggs. That's okay. The eggs are interesting too, Steve. That's okay. We can go back to the eggs. So they're usually really tough to tell if they're fertile. These 2 eggs that I have incubating right now banded. You could see the one at the top,
Yeah, you can see
and the one furthest to the right. I've never seen a striped mud turtle egg band before. Normally, it's really difficult for me to tell if they're fertile or not. But these banded, and then of course the band is now gone already. But pretty good sign to see them band that quickly. So they're great. Obviously, they're just like normal striped mud turtles, but they have a really cool coloration. Steve, there's a couple other pictures of like yellow ones in there that I'd love to show if you could find those ones. So this Everglades locale is usually lighter. You'll see people saying like blonde striped mud turtles, but these ones are even blonder,
right,
more goldener.
Give me a second.
Are
and I'll
you,
get them up there?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Are you aware of any variation within the Everglades population? Like, are there larger animals? Like,
as far as I know, there's no larger animals, but there's a lot of variation in terms of coloration. And Steve will show a couple pictures that will just knock your socks off of animals from the Everglades locale. Now everyone's going to be running down there trying to get.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But
oh yeah.
There you go. So that's a striped mud turtle from South Florida, and we're not talking about the Keys striped mud turtle. Which is dark but different and was protected at one point, and no
so they're dark.
is.
They're darker. Are they darker than the average striped mud turtle, like the ones that I have?
I think so. And then when you get north, more northern part of the range, like in Virginia, then they lose the stripes. They're just a dark turtle that doesn't have the stripes as much. That's my understanding. Again, I'm not a striped mud turtle expert. Right. I've just bred them for years, and I really enjoy them a lot. They have a special place in my heart because of how I got started with them and when. And there's nothing cooler than hatching a turtle that's the size of your pinky fingernail. What
are you seeing in reproduction with them? And is there any difference then compared to the more standard forms?
Reproduction in which way? As far as like production?
Egg laying frequency, clutch sizes, fertility. Just
the clutch sizes are smaller. I usually get 1 egg at a time, sometimes 2.
Wow.
They're pretty much the same beside that. So incubation is pretty straightforward. The eggs take a little longer than you might expect, sometimes like 100, 110, 120 days. The breeding is the same, although I don't see as much of the biting from the male as I did in groups that I kept in the past. And, the eggs are always a mystery. They don't band. They don't necessarily chalk. Sometimes you think, oh, that egg's dead, and then it hatches. And then other times you're like, oh, this one looks pretty good, and it doesn't. And it's weird to not be able to get a handle on it when you look at things like, I don't know, a Chinese box turtle egg or something like that, even a tortoise egg. Like, I feel like after you've done it a couple of times, it's just so easy to know when something's looking really good and when something's not. With these guys, I can't put a finger on it. I've been hatching them now it's been 8 years.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Well, I love it.
Hold on. Kevin's talking, but he's on mute.
Is he?
You are a professional. Turn your microphone on.
I'm very sorry.
Smooth.
That's all right.
So
That's all right.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You had said that you don't see the aggression in the males that you saw with like the Everglades locale, right? Locale.
I do. I think I do see it because you still get the females. So if I don't see any aggression, but I see a female hanging out on land who's not gravid for several days, then I assume that it's male aggression. I could palpate these too, by the way. 3-inch turtle. I could palpate them and see if they have 2 eggs.
Use your pinky.
Yeah. Yeah. Very proud of that.
That's how I have to palpate the spotted turtles, and it doesn't even work with some of them. It's just impossible.
Yeah, I palpated a couple Spangleri today too and felt eggs.
Okay.
So that's exciting. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm very proud of my palpating skills. If there's something like everyone's got their thing, I think I'm very good at palpation for eggs.
It's not Steve's thing.
No, it's not. It's not. I give him a hard time about that all the time.
No, it's definitely not my thing.
Kev, you didn't get to the second part of your question, or the actual question, right?
Yeah, so you kind of answered a little bit based off of your response. I had thought you said you didn't really see any aggression at all besides, and I didn't really factor in the females on land. So I was going to say was, if you didn't see the aggression, do you feel like that's indicative of like the locale or just your specific animals that you have?
I think it's more just my situation. It could be the enclosure. They have a lot of hiding spots. It could just be luck of the draw with the actual animals. I don't think it's a locality thing. Okay. But I'm really, really big on male timeouts. So Kwangtung river turtles, Maremi's iversoni, Reeves turtles, countless amount of species that I keep where I have an outside tub dedicated just for the male, where I will literally just take him for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days at a time and take him away from the group. I think I've mentioned that on the podcast before, just to try to give the females a break, because certain species, like Chris mentioned, spotted turtles, certain species, the males are just relentless. And if you're not keeping them in a large, really, really large enclosure, then you have to give those females a break from the males. So we can end with that. Thank you.
Cool.
Striped mud turtles, everyone. Great species to work with.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony.
Really cool to breed. Just be ready for the aggression. Yeah. Thank you.
But and real quick, for people that want to work with them, is that like a species that's readily available?
Absolutely.
I think they used to be more so. They used to be, but you don't see them too much now.
But you have to understand that when you're seeing adults, most of the time they're wild caught.
Well, I'm not even talking about. I'm talking about like legit captive bred babies that like someone like you would have, available. You don't seem to see that too often, anymore.
Yeah, they're not bred as much as you think they would be.
But I think it's partly because they're so underrated, and that is why I wanted to pick this for you to talk about, because, I think they're just one of those, and I think we did this really well here, and especially with what we're about to get to with Steve. We talked about Yuanoi, which is really obscure, a rare species that none of us understand really. Diamondback terrapins, which are just so unbelievably popular. I mean, I've never met a person that doesn't love them. And then something like, Kino Stern and Bowerai, the striped mud turtle that is, it's another one of those underdogs that deserves more attention,
Right.
So there you have it.
There you have it. Let's move along so that we are not here all night. Yeah.
Steve-O.
All
Esteban.
Right. Where do you want me to start, dudes?
Well, dude.
Well, we could start by saying that Steve knows more about map turtles than map turtles know about themselves.
That's right.
That's 100% true.
Map turtles have a lot of champions, though. I feel like, Steve, if you wanted to know that much, if you knew as much as you did about cyclemes, the Asian leaf turtles we talked about earlier, then you'd be like the cyclemes guy. But you picked map turtles, so you're just like one of several really, really well versed. Pun intended.
I would vote for Steve.
Yeah, there's
number one in our
There's
hearts.
a lot of guys who have a lot of field expertise with them, and there's a lot of guys who have lots of captive husbandry expertise of them. A guy who I've been talking with a lot over the past several years is Chris Leschowitz, who owns the grapthemis.com website. He has field experience and captive experience with them, and he's had a lot of success breeding as well. So he and I send photos to each other all the time. So
cool.
Yeah.
So you keep them. You do a lot
Lots-
more with them. It's funny because
lots
you
of
do a lot more with
graptors.
them in captivity than you do in the wild. Even
Right.
though you do in situ work, you just happen to not do that with Graptimus. So,
Right, because there aren't
tell us a
a
little
whole
bit
lot of
about your.
Graptimus around here, really. There's the northerns, but
Yeah.
they're common in PA.
Right. I love northern map
Oh,
turtles.
they're cool.
By the way,
They are cool.
A map turtle was our first ever like exotic turtle that we had in our home.
I remember those days, but when like everything would be a red-eared slider from like Petland Discount City, and then all of a sudden you would get like a false map turtle or a Mississippi map turtle, and you'd be like, "What is that?"
Like that pattern? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve,
they're so awesome.
Start by I don't think I know this about you. Can you pick a favorite map turtle, a favorite Graptimus?
Oh, I like that. You have to.
So
You have to.
I can't pick one, but I can tell you at one point, like, and this was before I had them. At one point, like, rings were my favorite, and I was like, I'm never gonna have them, but they were my favorite. I love my Barber's map turtles. Like, I absolutely crazy about my Barber's map turtles. There's something about them, and that I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm really proud of the group I've got, and I'm hoping maybe I get some eggs this year. The females are getting to be that size. Some eggs were dropped in the water within the last year and a half or so. So I'm hopeful I get some good eggs from them this year. I've got 3 females that should all be laying size. I've got 2 adult males in there with them, so I'm hoping this year might be the year, but I'll just have to wait and see.
Okay.
How many different map turtle species do you keep?
Right now, I have 3 of the 5 broadheads, all 3 of the sawbacks, plus the Lake Hamilton locale of Wachitensis, and I also have the Texas map turtle Graptimus versa.
Awesome.
Now these
So
are
that's
groups, or you have individual animals?
They're the only one. Actually, there are 2 where I have individuals. The first one would be the Lake Hamilton. I have one. He'll be, I guess, 2 later this year, a male, and then I have almost year-old Pearl River map turtle.
Oh, okay.
But you've got some big groups too,
I
like
do.
the yellow blotch maps.
Who would have thought that would have been the one that I end up with the most of? Because you can't buy them, whatever. But just a perfect storm of things has ended up. We've got 16 yellow blotch map turtles here, which is just kind of crazy in some respects. So I would have never
crazy in a lot of respects.
Would have never expected.
Now they're an ESA species, right?
They are.
Yeah. Exactly. Them
so just so everyone knows,
or whatnot.
Yeah, they have to be gifted. Yeah. So just so everyone knows, and
I saw that.
Kevin just spilled on himself. That was
What's
classic.
that, sir, dude?
I thought you were a seltzer expert.
Yeah.
Flavor, not drinking it.
Just so everyone knows that the ESA that Kevin is talking about is the Endangered Species Act, which is federal legislation that lists endangered species that cannot be sold across state lines. There are CBW permits that are increasingly more difficult to get.
And even when they were easier to get, they weren't easy to get for natives.
Natives are not put on permits. Why couldn't you let me finish that? You made it sound like I didn't know that.
No,
I was trying to set it up.
My bad.
Okay. I love it.
Anthony, give somebody else a chance to sound smart, man.
That was my one chance the whole show to sound smart. I've had several points where I've lost at a loss for words.
Talking about mud turtles.
Exactly. Thank you. Gee, Louise.
Those little muds are cool, though.
Yeah, you know what? If the 2 of you were, if Kevin and if you and Anthony were smart, you could have brought up the fact that mud turtles and diamondbacks actually can occur together, but you didn't. So
no, we didn't.
I haven't seen them occur together.
Hey, all right, back to Graptimus, and they do. We'll prove it next time you're here.
Yeah.
Huh? All right, I got a question for you.
Okay, let's go.
Question. I'm going to tie it into Diamondbacks. They're closely related, correct?
Yeah, I would. They're taxonomically, they're probably closer than any other emidids to each other.
And now, is that something where you feel like there was a common ancestor? evolved differently?
I'm guessing that'd be the case, but I don't know I don't know some of the evolutionary history that far back as well. With some of the genetic work being done, there's even a lot of look about just how ancient the northern maps are in comparison to all the rest of them too. So, but
Now, Steve, you with Pennsylvania state laws, can you have northern maps or
one
no?
per person.
Okay. So they still allow that.
Right, but again, it's a one per person kind of thing. It's that's with any of the native species, that's actually the most you can have is one per person of any native species.
Is it like Florida with certain laws, like one per person per household, or like you and Lisa could have one northern and that's it?
No, one per person, yeah. We could have two theoretically, but then the second they'd make babies, I'd be, over the limit, so to speak. So
right.
Have you thought of getting foster children just so that you can have more northern map turtles?
No, that has not been considered. I don't think that would be a top tier reason for that. Just saying.
Just something to think about.
So my knowledge on Grubtemes is very weak. I can say it's definitely probably the worst in this grouping. How common are they in Pennsylvania and throughout?
So northern map turtles are considered non-threatened in the state. That's why they have a limit of 1 as opposed to 0. They occur pretty heavily in the Susquehanna River drainage and up into the Juniata River. And I think there's been some that are out in the as where the Ohio comes in. They are in the Delaware in certain spots, but like the ones in New Jersey, those are believed to have like moved there somehow through canal systems or some other way, and aren't necessarily considered to be like native to those areas. But
one thing I didn't want to do with the Graptimus talk was to get to, this is what happens with map turtles every time, is we talk about this river and its drainage and this river and its tributaries and where this species is separated from this species and how you get around a bend in the river and then it changes species that you'll see. That's what the map turtle talk goes all the time. So I'm going to talk to a map turtle keeper about how you're trying to accomplish that. So enclosures, what's been a key for you? What are you excited about right now with your keeping approach, that sort of thing?
I'm gonna pop up some images of habitats here.
Let's do it.
I collected a bunch of pictures today of current condition of some of these. So one of the things you can notice, I actually use this clear polycarbonate around. It enables me to fill up the water higher so the turtles can't climb out. It also keeps splashes from ending up on the floors often. I actually just cleaned that today before I took these pictures so they'd look a little nicer. You can see the natural log for basking. They use it a ton. This is the Barbers and Rings tank you're looking at. They pretty much all hide in the back corner under that log most of the time. The males and the female ring spend the most amount of time on the basking area of any of the turtles in the habitat. You can see the custom filtration intakes and outtakes, but I'm using Rena filters. I find them really easy to use. They're versatile for media. And anyway... this is a nesting box. They're all custom built. You can see the hinge in the upper right hand corner or the latch, so I can fold it down. It's easier to dig in there for eggs. The next couple pictures are of the yellow blotched tank, where I've started making some modifications due to nesting shyness. Actually, not quite there yet. So this one is actually, you can see this one tank buried in another room. The fact that it's buried in another room means I might not have to do some of the things I'm doing to the yellow blotch tank. These turtles don't scare very well because they don't see me as I come into the main room. And actually, one of the Texas maps laid eggs for me a few weeks ago, but they were infertile. So hoping wait another year for those. I really could use another male. Texas are notorious for needing multiple males to successfully breed, and considering that wild sex ratios lean heavy towards male, it's no real surprise in that case. Here,
so interesting. Can I just hit you with a sidebar real quick? At the last photo, actually, it's in this photo too. It's been in like almost every photo. You have a towel rod.
Oh yeah.
hanging for every single enclosure, which I think is so cool because you're washing your hands between enclosures.
Drying them at
I
least.
assume,
Yeah. I'm drying them
but
off.
when you're drying them,
The,
if you have a dedicated towel for each enclosure, then you're not mixing it around and wiping your hands on the same towel all the time and what have you. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and with the maps, I don't get quite that into that because I do shuffle them around to separate males and females from time to time. So I do pay attention to that more when I'm going from like Cicalia to Graptimus, though, of course. So
Yeah.
and that,
It's a cool idea for those who are thinking about that.
Yeah.
And don't want to use a million paper towels or
right.
drip water all
like
over
me.
the place. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's really cool.
So that's one of those
There it
silly
is.
utilitarian things in the room. I have paper towels available too over by the sink, but I also have another rack above where I can hang 3 or 4 towels over the sink to use as well. I have like 2 shelves full of towels or something like that. I have a ton of them. So this is the yellow blotch tank from the human side. The one female dropped eggs in the water. I did retrieve them. One of them looks good, the other not so much. But talking with Chris Leschowitz and some others, maps can be really finicky for laying. Sometimes they want more privacy. So I actually added these vines since last Tuesday. I found the eggs in the water last Tuesday. I added these vines on, I think it might have been Friday morning. I can't remember. And then later that day, I found an egg. Now it still wasn't buried, but she actually laid it on top of the nesting area, and that one looks like it's fertile. So I've got hopefully 2 fertile yellow blotched eggs.
Wonderful.
So here's the inside view. You can see how the vines created some more privacy for them. I'm also going to be adding a couple plants to the corners here, like Kevin was talking about with his Diamondbacks, as just another little thing to help with privacy in there. Those were supposed to arrive today, but didn't. I was actually hoping I'd stick them in there before I took these pictures, but didn't happen.
The ivy, is that real or fake?
It's fake. Yeah, it's. I bought.
Have you ever thought about using? Sorry, go
No,
ahead.
I was just gonna say I bought it on Amazon.
Okay. Have you ever thought about using something like pothos that'll continue to grow? You'd be able to use it in different enclosures as well as kind of having it in the water to take up some of those nitrates?
So the one thing is with where this is, I want to be able to move it frequently to access that nesting area and whatever. So I figured going with something fake that it wouldn't matter if I kind of, have to mess with it a lot, would do the trick. And while I have plenty of pothos we could plant, I'd just be concerned that if they do traipse around the basking area or something, it'd end up getting destroyed. I've had Spengleri destroy pothos because of how much they've run over it. So,
And that's a small turtle.
yeah. And these girls are 8 times that size, so or more.
So
It's frustrating that they they're still doing that in the water. Like when you told me that you were finding the eggs from them in the water, that's exactly what I had experienced with them. And they had the same exact, similar to this same type of nesting area that the Diamondbacks did, and the Diamondbacks had no problem using it. But they don't. They're finicky,
right?
Like you said.
Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to tweak some of the privacy things there. And I've kind of done some tests with it. Like I made it to their tank without them jumping off. They couldn't see me with the vines, so or certainly not as well. So I'm hopeful that helps in the long run. I'm probably gonna need to do this to the barbers and rings next to it. I'm expecting because of how open that one is because of its position in the room, but. One day at a time. You can see an overhead shot of that enclosure. You can see all the plants. Like Kevin was talking about, he uses oyster shell. I have some of that. I also have crushed coral in there. Same reason. Diamondbacks and maps both need to have that high calcium thing to chew on or whatever else. You can see the female that laid the 3 eggs there, hanging out in the water. She's just sitting there. I took a shot of the output. You can see I have this jet I created that creates some ripples on the water and breaks its surface tension, helps oxygenate the water as well. So it's part of my filtration design.
That's cool.
I got a couple questions from the chat that are pretty good.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Nice.
So one is from our buddy who Anthony is repping, Jeremy Thompson.
Yeah.
And what is a normal clutch size for maps?
It really depends on the species.
Maybe an average then?
So some of them are closer to like 3 to 5, whereas like northern maps and even some of the broadheads, as they get to be experienced layers, will probably get above 6, I would guess, but I don't have a really good number for that, partly just because there's 14 different recognized species, 15 if you talk about subspecies. So there, lots of variation.
Okay, cool.
What's the other question, Cap?
So I'll save that.
You'll save it for the
Okay.
mailbag? All right.
You're going to save it? You're going to save it for the mailbag? All right.
Yeah, because it could be for all of us. So.
Okay. So do we want to go for the mailbag now, or Steve, do you have something that's pressing?
I was just going to, you had told me to show off some pretty shells. So I whipped up some of those pictures.
You should.
This is one of my Barbers, map turtles. She'll be about 10 years old this year. Smooth growth. Like Kevin was talking about, there's no reason to rush them. Like he was talking about with Diamondbacks, just be patient. They'll get there and they'll look a whole lot better and be a lot healthier. You can kind of see that chin mark that's really trademark for them on the chin strap. Side view of that turtle. I have a million pictures in here, so
That's a beautiful turtle, though.
there's a Delta male, couple of those. Can't talk about maps without showing off the ring maps. That's one of the males. Wait a minute. What happened to all the other pictures?
You went back to the beginning.
Apparently, it didn't load all my pictures in there, so I'm going to try to fix that here. But we'll try to run.
You're going to try to fix it right now?
Nope, that's apparently all it's given me. Maybe it has a limit in the system that I wasn't aware about. But
look at how perfect those rings are, though.
It's crazy.
It's like you just drew them. There's so many species that have such intricate markings like that, and the symmetry and everything is. Anybody listening to this understands what I'm saying. It's just incredible,
Yeah.
to see stuff like that on a wild animal.
That's wild.
Or a living animal,
Okay.
Yeah.
Nope. I thought was able to get it into another picture in there, but something, I don't know. Anyway, so and one last picture, then I'll toss the eggs up here.
Cool.
And there's the 3 of them. I think the one on the left is a dud.
You can totally see the difference.
And I think the 2 on the right are good. The one on the far
That's encouraging.
The one on the far right's the one she dropped on the nesting area the other day. So
that's really encouraging to see the juxtaposition of the infertile versus the calcified eggs that are hopefully fertile. Really great.
Now, is this her first time laying?
No, I don't know. Chris, do you know which of those females dropped the eggs for you before or not?
They both did.
Okay.
They both did, and I remember some of them I didn't get to them on time. But I believe that the ones that hatched were from the smaller female.
That's where these 3 eggs are from.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% on that, but from what I remember and just how finding the eggs, I do believe it was her.
Okay.
Let's get started with our features. And first one would be the mailbag.
Minto's mailbag.
There it is. There it is. We are going to get through them as fast as we can tonight because time is already of the essence.
So first of all, I want to apologize that you have to see this and an animated version of it in one show. So I'm sorry. So this question is from Cole Schramm. Excuse me. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. If I am, tell me. Or if I'm not, tell me I'm an idiot.
Call him an idiot. Call him an idiot.
Yeah, definitely. Regardless, call me an idiot. Do you guys use a solar meter for UVB when keeping turtles indoors?
I do sometimes.
I have not. It's one of those things where the bulbs are expensive enough that, and to replace them multiple times a year can kind of be a bit much. So I just replace them kind of at the beginning of summer every year, and then turtles would normally get less UVB by the winter and the early spring anyway. So that's kind of, I don't work. It's kind of the way I roll with it. But
for anybody who's curious, that's what they look like, and that's what they look like when they're not working. batteries, the batteries are dead. Everybody's outside. Everybody's been outside for a while, so
It's classic. I've never used it.
Here's something that I've been told in the past that I really found interesting because a lot of people don't understand it as far as UV goes. If you have, in your opinion on this, if you have a turtle outside all summer long, right? Do you need to provide UVB for it throughout the winter indoors?
I feel that you don't. But
I think it depends on the species, but I usually lean towards no on that.
Okay.
yeah,
I think tortoises are a very big indicator with that because of their marriage to the sun. Most species, I mean, obviously you have plenty of forest species, which that is not the case with. But I mean, all the years that I've done it, I've chosen to stop using UV indoors. Again, a lot of my tortoise collection is asleep in the winter, but I found that there's just no, so far going on 30 years, no long-term benefit or long-term ill effects from not using it.
Yeah.
If they're outside, and I mean, we're talking about they're outside, on a normal year, they're outside. I'm talking about exotic species too. Take radiated tortoises, for example. They're in a normal year, they are outside from April to November. This year they had to go out in May because we had a bad spring. But even still, I'm not going to give them UVB when they come back in.
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be plenty of evidence out there for if you do give it that it probably benefits them. But the reality, I think, is naturalistically speaking, some species don't get a lot of UVB. Take a tropical forest turtle or tortoise that lives under a big canopy of leaves all year long. They're just not going to get a whole lot of UVB naturally. Might it benefit them to get it in captivity? Yeah, it might. But
take a look at one of the biggest misconceptions in raising baby turtles lies with box turtles. People were killing box turtles accidentally and raising them to look like complete disasters because they were keeping them in fully lit terrariums or fish tanks or Rubbermaid containers with this strong UVB lighting, and they were drying out. What does a baby box turtle do? Yeah. Any of the species of box turtle, when they hatch, they head right under cover, and they are spending 90+% of their time underneath leaf litter, dirt, sand, what have you. They're only exposing themselves for just enough time so that they can develop enough of an appetite to eat what they need to eat, and then they're instinctively programmed to go right back underneath.
And half the bugs are going to
because they're vulnerable.
Half the bugs they're going to eat are under the cover too.
Yeah, you're right. They don't even have to move really if they want to eat, a little earthworm or a slug or anything. It's right there for them. So that was a good.
So that ties into a question we just got asked. What are your opinions on hatchlings' need for UV? So that pretty much answers that right there.
Again, it very much depends on the species.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. A hatchling tortoise or a hatchling painted turtle or hatchling slider is much different than
there you go,
or a Indian spotted pond turtle, Hamiltoni. That's much different than a hatchling box turtle, whether it's Asian or North American box turtle.
And Steve, you had brought up too in the past too, some of these high quality commercial diets with the vitamin D3 content in them is also benefiting the turtles, which may subside the need for such strong UVB.
It's possible. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, makes sense.
All right, so that's what I have from the mailbag.
Awesome. So let's try to rapid fire this a little bit. We've only gone rapid fire on everything.
Where are we going to next?
Once in the past. So we're gonna go to Pit and Peak next. Okay, we could do the same rotation that we did to start, so that Steve, ahead of time what the rotation is going to be, because you have the difficult job of grabbing the photos for us.
So that's
all right.
So we're not going to time Pit and Peak, but it should be very fast.
Why don't we do 30 seconds for Pit and 30 seconds for Peak? So you get a minute total.
We can do it, but he won't have the timer up. You're going to get Steve all verklempt and upset if you try to get the stuff. On screen. Oh, geez, we're better than that, Kev. We're better than that now. We have Steve.
We can keep it quick. We can keep
All
it.
right,
Yeah.
so Chris, you're up.
Oh, damn it.
Where are you starting
As he
with?
says
You
when he
starting with peak or
realizes.
pit?
I'll start with my peak. Go ahead.
There you go.
All right, so my peak, what I've labeled this as, is taking chances. I have started to house certain species outdoors here in southern coastal New Jersey that some people would think is crazy of me to do, but I have spent enough time here and I've lived my whole life in this state to understand that there are certain benefits during certain times of the year, and that for a lot of species, even as something as what is otherwise considered very sensitive, the Egyptian tortoise, Testudo kleinmanni, to not be housed outdoors. But I started last year experimenting with housing hatchlings, juveniles, and adults outside here, and they did fantastic, phenomenal. They were outside for about 2.5 months, so I decided to fully move them outdoors this season. There's a hatchling, there are several juveniles, and several adults outside now in a very carefully planned pen that is fully secure, decorated with all kinds of things that aim at their habitat. We have a coastal influence here, so they get that oceanic morning mist, which quickly dries up. It gets very hot. They are in full sun at all times. They have a cold frame so that they can thermoregulate if needed. And I'm happy to report that they're doing great. And they're not the only species that I'm doing this with. So that is something that so far I'm succeeding with, is taking chances, which is a little bit outside the box for me, because I've always known what species will do well here, primarily outdoors. But this is starting to open up some doors for me.
All right, and your pit.
I have been missing nests, which I always really prided myself on not doing. But I've also never been a daddy of two. So and my wife is so married to the Terrapin Conservation Initiative that it gets a little bit tough for us to do this. But I'm still making sure that I'm around for, I'd say, 90% of the nest I have managed to safely collect and get into artificial incubation. But this is a Blandings turtle, and the reason I used her as an example is these turtles typically start around now, and they don't fully get rid of the deposit their eggs and finish nesting until the wee hours of the morning sometimes. So you can imagine how tired I am, and how sometimes I don't get out there. And then if I don't see them do it, or if I don't think to look at the camera, I don't see it happen, and I just have to hope that the turtles safely hatch in the enclosure and don't get eaten by the adults. So, that's my current fail, is that I have missed a few more nests than I'd like to admit this year. But we'll see. Maybe we'll have some hatchlings at the end of the season, and we'll report on that.
Awesome.
Awesome, man. Good time, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
All right, Kev, you're up.
All right, so I'm going to start with my my pit, which was my pit from 2 weeks ago, actually. Kind of tied this up and closed it out, unfortunately. I had said that I had a predator that wasn't taking anything, but I knew it was there because there was damage to the enclosure, literally the next day, Anthony got a call from me. I was very upset, actually. I moved the animal that was in that enclosure to what I thought was a much, much more protective area for the time being until I could fix it. And the next day, the animal struck and took that turtle from me inside that enclosure. I'm almost positive it was a great blue heron that we have right by us. I have multiple pictures and videos of them in my yard. I've seen babies taking bowls out of the ground and flying onto my shed and eating them in front of me. They're not scared of humans. They don't care. If I get within 10 feet of it, they'll fly away, but they're not worried about being in my yard, just taking stuff, I guess. So I've started working on making more things protective over my 3-toed enclosure, which is completely open. It's fairly large. It's like roughly like 15 by 20, I would say. I'm going to be hanging a line across it forward and back, kind of a mismatch pattern, so that as the bird comes down, it'll kind of hopefully hit it and leave. But that was definitely my pit. I was very sad to have that animal taken, specifically because I didn't learn from my mistake. The same thing happened 3 years ago before I started using lids on these enclosures out there. So that's my pit, guys. Unfortunately, it happens, and Anthony made me feel a lot better about it. But
He does that.
yeah, but protect your animals as much as you can. Now for the peak. So I take the second week off in June each year for vacation, and that sole reason is because that's the busiest nesting time for turtles here in Connecticut that I find anyway. At my local spot, and it's been a really cool week. So as you see this picture here, this was just a young female common snapping turtle. She had just abandoned a nest right on the mulch that you see right behind there, and she was not happy that I was picking her up, but I wanted to take the photo, and I wanted my daughters to see the animal a little bit more up close, where I was in control of it. First time just kind of like walking near that turtle. So that is one of them. If you switch to, there's 4 photos for the peak, Steve. You want to rotate through them real quick? I caught a baby rabbit somehow. I was walking, looking around for box turtles, and I just looked down and it was at my feet, and I just bent over and picked it up. Excuse me. I've never held a wild rabbit before, and it just started screaming bloody murder. Like I didn't know they can make these noises.
Can you give us an example of what
you got it. Yeah, it was just like just like insane. Afterwards, I called my wife. I'm like, you won't believe what just happened. And I sent her the picture. She's like, oh, it's probably dead now. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like that sounds.
Probably
crazy.
gave it a heart attack.
Exactly. She's like, yeah, rabbits are insanely prone to heart attacks.
Yeah.
And I think that's the stupidest thing ever. So, unfortunately,
that's why you're not a rabbit guy.
I can't touch it. And so within one day, I saw these 2. So the one in the hand right now, that's an eastern, a male. That's a male. They're both eastern box turtles. Of a male and then the female. Now this female I saw 3 nights earlier, about 150 feet away from this spot. I did not palpate them. I didn't want to stress them out at all.
Only the rabbit.
Yeah, well, I didn't know.
Not a rabbit.
But this one right here, the male, was the most red, eastern box turtle I've ever seen. Now I'm sure Chris has some on his property that are rivaling, if not more. But that thing blew me away when I saw it. I was about
That's a pretty one, man.
Yeah, I was about 100 feet away from it, and I saw it walking across this mulch path, and I just literally dropped everything in my hands. So I had plants in my hands and whatnot. I just dropped everything and just ran as fast as I could because I didn't want to dip into the brush real quick and not get it.
I really wish somebody had a camera on him today that day, because it just sounded hysterical from start to finish. Were you screaming like the rabbit when you saw him?
No, but I did. Keep in mind, it was about 6:30 in the morning, and I was like, "Holy!" and I ran. I saw that glowing red head, and I was like, "That's insane!" So I ran over there as fast as I could. That was really, really cool to see. 3 days prior,
they look big up there. Are they large?
Big.
Wow.
Yeah, they are. So I saw a female 2 years ago, and we actually had a video on the air of it laying eggs. That thing was insanely bulbous, just like massive.
Good word use.
Yeah, and what we just saw. Our buddy Eric had. Am I saying that right, Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah, I only know him from the internet. Sorry. He posted a photo of like an insanely large one. I didn't get the exact measurements, but very, very huge animal as far as this species goes.
Interesting.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Pam Meyer as well, who's the best rehabber in Connecticut. She had a picture of a large one. They were kind of going back and forth about who's
bigger,
encountered the larger. Yeah.
Yeah, my cousins, an aunt and uncle live in upstate New York, and the one and only box turtle I ever found in New York was in their backyard, and this thing was like almost twice the size of what I'm used to seeing down here. And it, a lot of times the northern animals are larger. So that stuff's just always cool. But sorry.
I want to add one last thing in really quick.
Bergman's rule, by the way,
in
case anyone wants to look it up. Bergman's rule.
Thank you. What were you going to say?
One thing that we've been noticing here in Connecticut, and I'm not sure in other places as well, is that we've been finding nests that are dug, they've laid the eggs, and then they're not covering up the nest at all, which is pretty weird. They're just leaving completely, open nests with eggs at the bottom. I found it personally. I found a couple nests like that. My buddy has. Then we got reports from friends of ours from other areas in Connecticut that have it. So
you don't think somebody's taking the females while they're in the process, do you?
I mean, the spot that I go to, I know the people that go to this spot for animals.
Yeah.
To look at them and whatnot. And they're all like upstanding dudes that wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's
weird.
It is weird. But like I said, we've been hearing from other parts of Connecticut too. So I don't know if it's insanely dry here, or the people that are watching. If you see that, send me an email. I'm curious to hear about it. If you have photos, things like that.
Right.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks, Kev.
All right, Anthony,
Yeah.
you're up.
I'm up, man. I'm ready. I'm going quick too.
Word.
That picture of my backyard as it is right now. I just took that today. You see the pens. There's one to the right of the shed, one to the left of the shed behind my daughter's playhouse, and then the pond off in the distance on the left. And yeah, I think, I'm doing well with construction. I'm a little out of it today. I feel like I spent the day at the beach because of the work that I put into those walls. I was doing the pens near the shed today. I'd done the pond, as you guys know, in the past. So just trying to get the new yard set up for the animals and things like that. But really proud of the walls. They're very sturdy. They have a lip on the inside. They go down into the ground, and my wife thinks they look good, which is probably the latter portion of that is the most important. Yeah. Exactly. Because if she's not going to go for it, then I'm dead in the water. So going pretty well with that, preventing escapes and things. I feel really good about it. I actually saw a chipmunk that found its way into my pond enclosure, and I watched it. I'm not kidding, for 30 minutes, and it couldn't get out. It didn't know how to get out. A chipmunk, seriously, because the lip, it's a 6-inch lip. It comes all the way out, and then there's a really big lip made of hardware cloth, and it was just hanging against the back fence, and it was just hanging out there, going back and forth to the corners, and it just couldn't figure out a way to get out. And I'm not kidding when I say a half hour. I'm working in the yard, and I just keep going back, and the chipmunk is still there, freaking out. It's like Kevin's rabbit. We keep finding weird rodents that are that are just freaking out.
It's funny because I have both of those that are just in and out of my enclosures all the time, but the rabbits actually stay, and I think they think I'm feeding them because they have a similar diet to the tortoises.
Right? Why not? A little Missouri. It's nice.
Yeah.
So that's the peak. The pit is this guy.
Was that a video?
That's a video. So that's a little leopard tortoise chasing a larger female, and that guy has been a pain in my butt because I had my yard set up for the leopard tortoises, and leopard tortoises, they don't really dig ever. They're large, they're domed. So I had the fence set up so that I could have my leopard group and that they could stay in the new. This is my first year in the new house, so I'm getting everything ready, and there's a million things to do, and I can only do so many in a day or a week or a month. And I thought I had it ready, and this leopard is an escape artist because he's probably, I haven't weighed him, I really need to. He's got to be less than 500 grams, but he's a mature male who was, it must be just the captive growth or whatever. He's the smallest adult leopard tortoise I've ever seen. And so he's mature. He's breeding all the females. He's all over the females all day. But at the same time, he's like pocket size. So he finds little spots that he can get out where a leopard tortoise would never be able to get out. Mm-hmm. So he's gotten out 3 times so far, and I still have him. I'm very on top of everything. But yeah.
Now,
so
would your wife be okay with you putting hardware cloth along the bottom, like buried in your entire property?
Yeah, she would be okay with it, but like my fingers and my bank account wouldn't be okay with it.
Yeah, who wants to do that?
It would be like $500, tons of effort, and rip my hands up in the process. You remember in The Office where Dwight Schrute builds the gym for muscles, and he has a tin cutting station. And I think of hardware cloth every time. He's like, you cut this for 15 minutes and your forearms will be on fire. Like, yeah, I know. I do hardware cloth for my turtles, so I know all about it. There you go. Pit and peak.
All right.
Steve, you're up.
I have a question about your pit, actually. Really quick.
Oh, there's a question. Okay. All right.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Steve, can you pull up the picture of his peak?
Yeah. Give me a second. I had something else about ready to go here. And peak.
What's your question?
Fade. Oops. Go.
So in your enclosures there, you see that along, the sides of them anyway, there's like chain link fence, correct?
Yeah.
Now, do you have any visual barriers on the bottom that stops the animals from trying to target that area's escape?
No, it's hardware cloth, and then as you can see, just look at the fence. There's so much that's so much poison ivy, by the way. All of the vines and leaves and things that creep in also come through the hardware cloth as well, so it becomes pretty opaque.
Okay. Awesome.
You can see through it, but there's just green behind it and there's just green in front of it. I'm sure they realize that there's something on the other side, but you don't see them constantly trying to get out of that because it's very obvious that it's a wall.
Okay, cool.
Especially when it grows in the early spring. And when I first set it up, it was much different than, give it a month or two and then it just looks kind of like a wall of green.
All right. So I'd say my pit would be just trying to, figure out a way to get these turtles to lay in the nesting area. And I feel like I'm on the precipice of getting Graptome's eggs, but I have so many species that are like approaching that age where they should start laying. So like I might actually be slowly getting impatient because I've been patient for so long with them. But although at the same time, like it's cool to have fertile eggs too in the incubator with those. But I'd say the best peak is I have the wrong thing on. I still have Anthony's thing on. There we go.
That means a lot.
These two Cicalia quadriochelata eggs are looking really good and should probably hatch within the next several weeks. So
Nice.
Four-eyed turtles.
Yeah, four-eyed turtles.
Keeping track at home.
Four-eyed turtles.
Yeah. Yep.
So cool, man.
Yeah, so basically they start out as banded, and then eventually they will chalk to one end, and then eventually they'll chalk all the way to the other end. And once they're completely chalked to both ends, in the past, my data says they'll hatch in about 11 days from the point that they fully chalk. So,
Well, who's keeping track? Right? Awesome, man. Very cool. Okay, so now we're on to our last feature, which is the best taxa spotlight, best species spotlight. And this week we want to highlight a species that we've each never kept, but that we like. We haven't done that before, right?
No.
I don't think so.
It's new, right? I'm trying to keep it fresh.
So Andrew Hermes had asked the question way back earlier in the chat. Was basically like this. So I told him he needed to wait. But he said, starting with Anthony and going around, what species do you not currently work with that you would want to in the future?
There we go.
Is he offering? Andrew. Am I so he said starting with Anthony?
Well, that's what he said in his question. So
all right, are you ready for me to go first?
I am ready for you to go first if you want to.
All right, yeah, of course.
Here you go.
So for this, I chose the ornate box turtle. It's a species that I never kept. They have a huge range, and I mean the ornate box turtle, which I guess is a subspecies in itself, right? According to most people. Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but large range. Some of that includes some cold tolerance as well, and they're cool. I think they look really great. They're beautiful. My wife won't call these army helmets like she calls my three toes, my three toads. I think they're really cool. They have a larger head than most North American box turtles, and I just think they're really cool looking. I'm excited to see their behavior when I eventually work with them myself. And what's not to like, right? Nice. Was I wrong, Chris?
No, you're pretty good.
Pretty good. What did I mess up?
Nothing. No, you're fine.
I'm talking about a species that I have never kept, so give me a break. But I'm
not. My voice just cracked.
They're very attractive.
They are. They could rival the Florida box turtle. They really could. I love them, and they're great. I hibernated them right here, brumated them right here outside. You could do it.
I think they're much nicer than the Florida box turtle.
Do you?
Nicer in terms of looks, or nicer in terms of
visual? I haven't kept
really.
Florida, so. Yeah.
Floridas are sexy.
Some of my Floridas, I mean, I'm sorry, radiateds are gorgeous, but it's kind of like move over, dude.
Right?
Like some of the Florida box turtles are insane.
Floridas are crazy.
Now, are you just talking about like the striations on the shell, or?
Yeah, I mean, I have one that I think I used photos of it in my box turtle video. She's actually got like a caramel chocolate shell and with a lot of striations, and It comes down to opinion. Ornate box turtles are absolutely gorgeous. Just ask Jordan Gray. You know, they're unbelievable. You know, but anyway.
All right.
There you go.
Let's go keep going in alphabetical order. Let's go, Chris. Go.
Okay. So I chose the bog turtle, Glyptomus muhlenbergii, or bergii, whatever. Now, this is a species that, let me be clear, that I would never, absolutely, ever, never attempt to keep because of the federal and state restrictions on it. But it is a species that I would love to keep because not only do I love it because it occurs in my state and occurs in the Northeast, and I have an affinity for those species, but I think I would do very, very well for them. Over the years, I have grown accustomed to being able to provide for North American species, particularly those in my area. And I just really think that if I were ever given the chance to house a bog turtle or a group of them, that they would thrive and I would do really well by them. I've heard a lot of stories that they actually are hardy when set up in proper conditions. I've heard this from people in other countries and people from the few states in the United States of America that can legally keep them. And I don't doubt that they would do really well. It's sad that it can't seem to be done and it may never be done. I think that that's a failure for the turtles in the end because I think that the right people could do very right by them. But uncharted waters there, and don't ever attempt it.
Nice.
One of these days, I'm not going to stutter at all. Sometimes I stutter and I get upset myself. I might not sleep tonight over that. But anyway.
I didn't see it.
No worries. All right, Kevin. All right. On your mark,
Alphabetical,
get set, go.
All right, no surprise here. A Diamondback terrapin. It is the the Mangrove Diamondback terrapin. Malaclemes terrapin rhizophararum. And that's the land I may have messed up, Steve. If I did, tell me. If not,
I think you're pretty
forever
good.
Hold your peace. Perfect. So there are two different locales of these, southern and northern, I guess. The Keys, southern Keys, northern Keys. And I may mix them up, but I believe that the southern are the large spots like you see here, these big, almost like what you would see in concentric diamondback or concentric patterning phenotypes, but really, really large blotches where the northern gets a lot more like speckled and splotched, kind of like the Fort Myers Ornate. And if you don't know that, email me. I'll send you pictures to show the difference. I showed Chris recently. He saw them. But it's a really, really cool terrapin. I have a few buddies that work with them. And what they recently kind of been looking at in the wild is that these are almost even not brackish terrapin anymore. These are like saltwater terrapins. The salinity is so high where they're at, on these islands, that it's salt water. It's really cool. I think it'd be interesting to try it out.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Steve, bring us home, man.
I'm going to go with any of the flowerback Kaora. I haven't worked with any of them, and I know my wife thinks they're gorgeous too, which always helps. So that's where I'd go. I didn't have a picture ready, but that's where I'd go. I've worked with like 50 plus species if you include the time I was helping Joshua with his stuff. So sometimes it's hard to find something that I was like, oh yeah, there's something I haven't touched. So
that's cool. It's really cool. I appreciate that answer. Now I know. And that concludes our show. But first, let me remind you about our bonfire campaign with the first ever Pondcast logo merchandise. Look at the array of grayish merchandise.
There's a lot more colors.
Yes,
that just happens to be what the preview decided to show up tonight.
That's funny.
But please go buy those. It supports our educational programs.
That's right.
They're
almost the same color, but they're
we've
not.
only sold about 25 of these so far between the two designs. We'd like to hit 50 of those if possible by the end of Friday when the campaign ends. So don't run out of time to get your limited edition Pondcast tees.
It's funny, the Terrapin shirt did so well, and it just it lets me know.
You know what?
What work people appreciate more.
Well, it's what I think of it. Some of it has to do with the fact that it's Diamondback terrapins. We've covered that. I mean, people love Diamondback terrapins, and there's a lot more people out there that love Diamondback terrapins or that heavily interested in them than they are our podcast, but we're hoping we can get there. So guys, please help us out because what you did for us with the Terrapin shirts was amazing. You made a lot of things possible, and we would greatly appreciate it. We work hard on this stuff, and we want to keep this going. We want to keep being able to do all the things that TTR is able to do, which means we need your help. We need your support. And, we're eternally grateful for anybody that even just checks it out. So thank you.
Hey, I also want to thank everybody for joining us. You know, this is the second podcast this month.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
That's a big deal. You know, we have a pretty good viewership right now. Let us know if you like seeing 2 a month or if you are sick of us. Hopefully you want, you know.
I'm sick of you.
It happens.
Plural.
All of us, yeah.
Yeah. Not you,
Thank
Kev.
you. Thank you.
No, not you, Kev. Mostly Chris.
But I thought I had the best shirt tonight.
You do. You do. But the shirt only gets you so far. All right. Thank you,
I'll
guys.
figure it out.
See you next time.
All right.
Have a
Good
good
night.
night.